How's it going, guys? I'm Jared and welcome back to Avalanche Reviews. Now, I've always had a love-hate relationship with third-person shooters, so today I'm going to take a step outside of my comfort zone and review the latest Spec Ops game in the series. But why should you play this instead of all the other third-person shooters that have flooded the market? Let's find out in my review of Spec Ops The Line.
Gentlemen, welcome to Dubai.
The story in the latest Spec Ops game is a surprisingly deep and well-written narrative. You play as Delta operators who are tasked with what seems like a simple mission. Dubai has been hit by the worst sandstorms in recorded history and has been all but buried, killing and trapping an unknown amount of civilians. Colonel John Conrad, commander of the U.S. Army's 33rd Battalion, refused to give up his evacuation of the city's residents and has been subsequently trapped in the storm's wake.
Instead of coming home, he volunteered his entire battalion to help with the evac.
Your orders are to find Conrad and any survivors, then radio for evac. However, as soon as the trio enters the city's limits, these orders take a backseat to survival as the locals begin attacking you in waves. It seems that in the chaos of the storms, a militia is formed and are now at war with the 33rd. Once further inside the city, things get even more complicated when you find out the 33rd is not only at war with the locals, they're at war with themselves. After declaring martial law, the 33rd seem to have taken over Dubai in hopes of restoring order. However, a small faction within stood against this order and began a revolt.
I could not inspire them. They let a mutiny. Foolish in a place like this.
The CIA is also involved, organizing and commanding local militias to accomplish their own goals. The Line's story is much more robust than you might assume given its choice in game mechanics. Most cover-based shooters don't even come close to a narrative this dark or meaningful. This is due in part to its well-written and voice-acted characters.
You think I like watching these people die, huh? You think I won't carry this into my fucking grave?
As you progress through the game, your team will start to show signs of degrading mental conditions as they witness the terrible things that have been taking place during the 33rd's rise to power. You'll find US soldiers lined up and executed, and locals hanging from highway light poles. During your mission, you will cause a few atrocities of your own, whether or not you intend to. These moments are handled masterfully. Scenes of charged soldiers begging for death or an American beaten to death in front of you are morbidly dark, and they had a profound effect on me as I played. When Walker's orders stop relying on logic and start sounding like revenge schemes, Adams and Lugal will actually question his commands and blatantly protest them.
To keep moving.
Walker, you're not even...
I'm gonna make these bastards pay for what they've done. Now, are you with me or not?
What would usually be an action-packed set piece in any other shooter becomes a depressing look at the unintended consequences of war. No matter how hardened or desensitized to violence you are, this game is likely to leave a little sadness in you. And even among modern games known for their great writing like Metal Gear Solid or Mass Effect, Spec Ops' story manages to be both thought-provoking and unique. Unless you've been hiding under a rock for the last 7 years, you may have noticed a trend in console gaming. It seems you can't swing a red-ringed Xbox 360 without hitting a third-person cover-based shooter. And for this reason, I can't exactly fault Jaeger Development for their decision to fall in line with the rest as far as gameplay goes. There's definitely nothing wrong with little chest-high walls here and there, but it takes a little of the surprise out of an ambush. Even though it's not my favorite style, the cover-based shooting in Spec Ops is handled well, and suffers from no major flaws or bugs. Not every bullet is fired from behind cover though. There are plenty of opportunities to trade lead out in the open. I found myself having a little more fun during these parts of the game. Those complaints aside, I really like the mechanics of shooting in Spec Ops. Guns have a pleasing amount of weight and recoil to them, and they walk the thin line between accuracy and realism. Enemies have a good number of death animations, all depending on where you shot them and whether or not they are moving. Issuing orders to your squad is a simple button press attached to specific actions. Lugal will hit long-range targets and Adam will hurl flashbangs.
Below, on the walkway. Put him down.
This is a simple addition that kept combat feeling fluid and tense. Whether an attempt at realism or a conscious effort to add depth to the combat, ammo is in short supply, and this works itself into the gameplay very nicely. You'll be surprised how accurate you can be when you're down to your last clip on your favorite gun. Speaking of accuracy, scoring headshots puts the game in slow motion for a brief instant. I thought this was a really nice effect, and I would like to see it in more cinematic shooters. Throughout Dubai, there are areas where you can interact with the environment. This results in destroying glass or walls, which releases sand that buries your enemies or advances you to the next area. These sand traps are few in number, and even though it is one of the developer's selling points, there aren't that many opportunities to use them past the first hour or two of gameplay. As if the shooting wasn't enough to please gamers, there are action set pieces throughout the game, and for the most part they're pretty fun. Except one chase scene that forces your team to run down a corridor with a helicopter-mounted minigun nipping at their heels. I literally played this part 9 times before finally passing to the next area. I'm not sure if this was a bug or if I just wasn't getting the point, but it seemed like my success or failure was random. Now, I haven't exactly painted Spec Ops gameplay in a very positive light, but despite these negatives, this game has some very tense and action-packed scenarios. I had a really good time with the shooting in Spec Ops, and I really liked the unique situations I was put in, like being separated from my squad or taking on enemies in the middle of a sandstorm. There are also points where the game makes you decide between 2 equally grim outcomes. Aside from one exception, these decisions have no right or wrong answers, and the game has your squad mates arguing both sides, making your decision that much harder to make.
Now's our chance, Walker. We got an open path straight to goal. What about the civilians? We gotta save them.
Despite the game almost pandering to stereotypical modern shooting fanboys, there's some real fun to be had here, and Spec Ops' grim tone lends a seriousness to its gameplay that elevates it above its competitors. I find it strange that most PC games praised for their graphics don't look that great to me. This has to do with the battle between graphics and aesthetics. For instance, the first Crysis is still giving top-of-the-line PCs a run for their money, but despite the level inside the alien ship, the entire game just looks bland to me. Spec Ops balances both graphics and aesthetics perfectly. Character models don't look amazing, but superb lighting and geniusly designed environments blend perfectly to mask any shortcomings. Little touches like glistening sand or the pink mist from a well-aimed headshot shows the studio's attention to detail. The ruined city of Dubai is beautiful in its design, and this game knows it. There are many points in the game where you are given the opportunity to marvel at the city's destruction. Every environment in Spec Ops feels gritty and almost post-apocalyptic, and as you may assume, the sand in the game received an equal amount of detail. It moves, looks, and reacts very realistically. The environments aren't the only spectacles here, though. There's also a large emphasis on your team's degrading physical condition. Throughout the game, you and your squad mates will take a considerable amount of damage. These gashes, scrapes, and bruises add to the game's grim, realistic feel. While Spec Ops may not be a graphical powerhouse, it still manages to look great, with more focus going into lighting, environments, and small post-processing effects. This makes the game a happy medium between graphically intensive and well-designed PC titles.
Son of a bitch!
Well guys, I guess you can't judge a book by its cover. Spec Ops The Line is a very competent shooter, and the storyline is surprisingly dark and engaging. I definitely recommend you guys check this one out. Now that's all I have for now, but there will be more to come, so please make sure to comment and subscribe. And until then, I'm Jared.
A local airborne insurgency has infiltrated the U.S. zone designated as my pants.
And this has been Avalanche Reviews. Thanks for watching, guys, and if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, drop me a line on Facebook or Twitter. And in the meantime, what do we have here? Why, it's 2 more episodes of Avalanche Reviews. Well, I'll go ahead and leave now. I trust you'll do the right thing.